Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is Eisenherz and today we're going to talk about a very specific scenario of gameplay which you might have found yourself in, which often leads to a lot of debates and sometimes even frustration. Let's have a quick look at Kingmaking. In game theory, Kingmaking is a scenario in a 3 or more player game in which one player, who at that moment is unable to win the game, has the capacity to decide which one of the other players will win the game. Let me give you guys a quick example. Player A has a single counterspell in hand. Player B has Oracle plus Consult in hand. Player C has enough damage on board to kill everyone in their combat step. Player D is Hellbent and has no relevant board state. All of this is known information to everyone. If player A doesn't counter player B's combo, they will lose the game to player B. If they do, however, counter the combo, they will still lose the game to player C. Either way, their action will determine who gets to win the game, although they themselves have no way of winning the game in this situation. They have become the Kingmaker. Now, before we continue to look at different approaches to resolve this situation, it must be stated that for a situation like this to arise, information has to be open to all the players. It cannot be considered Kingmaking if player A counters player B's combo to then lose to player C's combo, which was waiting in their hand, hidden from everyone else. Now, let's assume we are in the situation of being a Kingmaker. How do we resolve this issue? We do not want to be in this position. In fact, as cEDH players, our goal is to win the game, not to decide who else gets to win. So our goal in this situation must be to use our position as leverage to increase our chances of winning the game. We need to up our odds, not just slightly, but significantly. Let's look at 3 different approaches to resolve this situation. Approach number 1, doing nothing. This approach is, in my opinion, not viable, because it contradicts our main objective, which is winning the game. By doing nothing, we do not increase our chance of winning the game, so this would be the least competitive approach. Don't do that if possible. Approach number 2, cutting a deal. In the aforementioned scenario, you are only able to stop player B, but not player C, because your counterspell does not deal with their board state. If player B decides to still go for their combo, despite knowing you have interaction, you can still use your counterspell as a lever. Simply turn your attention to player C. If you don't interact, they will lose the game, so they obviously want you to interact. But as your goal is to win the game and not just lose to them, you need to propose a deal that will significantly increase your chances of winning the game. For example, you could propose something like this. I will counter player B's combo if you agree to not win the game for at least 2 turn cycles, not stacks me out or interact with my value plays, and not set up an instant speed win. This demand sounds kind of unreasonable, right? Well, you as the Kingmaker have to make sure to significantly increase your chance of winning the game. So your goal must be to get as much out of this deal as possible. Player C, however, does not want to completely give up their winning position, because that would be the same as just throwing the game. So you need to find an agreement based on the current game state. If player C agrees to give you 1 more turn cycle, kills the rest of the table, leaves you at 1 life, and without a way to get back into the game within that 1 or 2 extra turns, you did not significantly increase your odds of winning the game. Your deal was bad, and countering player B's combo could, or probably should be, considered Kingmaking. The same goes if they simply agree not to win the game on their turn, but are capable of setting up so they can win at instant speed, or stacks the board in a way that nobody else is able to do anything impactful until it's back to them and they can win. Something like this actually happened in a tournament very recently. You can find a link to the recording of that situation down below. The person that countered the first win attempt was so desperate to get back into the game that they agreed to an incredibly bad deal and of course lost the game to the player they made the deal with. A perfect example on why agreeing on a deal is incredibly risky, needs a lot of meta and deck knowledge, and very precise wording in order to not be a complete disaster. Not to mention that in a tournament, setting a deal is not regulated by the rules. You could cut a deal, but the other party could just ignore it and still win the game, leaving you as the Kingmaker and themselves as the winner. If high prices are on the line, there will be people that are willing to do this despite of the community backlash. A Black Lotus in your safe outweighs the hate you will receive by a bunch of Magic players you mostly only know from the internet. So the takeaway for this scenario is that A, you shouldn't bring someone else into this situation by forcing through a combo attempt in such a situation, because you will still lose the game. B, it's almost impossible to cut a valid deal because of how complex this game is. And C, deals can be broken, especially in tournaments. So I personally wouldn't recommend this out, unless one player is forcing you into it. And even then, you need to be very precise with your wording and have to think about if and how you can actually get back into the game. Approach number 3. Proposing a draw and rematch. This obviously applies mostly for tournament cEDH because a draw will yield a better result than a loss, and you can sometimes actually have a rematch to determine a winner. The elegance of this proposal is that you present an out that gives everyone a new and significant chance of winning the game. In the aforementioned situation, only the 2 players that are presenting a win would be inclined to deny the proposal. But if one of them denies it, they will also run the risk of just losing the game anyway. Like I just explained, if player B declines a draw, player C will be inclined to agree to a deal. Player B will then eat your counterspell and most likely lose to player C. If, however, player C decides to decline the draw because you can't interact with their board state, player B will be in a position to argue that you, the Kingmaker, should not interact with their combo, because it would 100% be Kingmaking. Player C would now also lose the game. So either way, going for a draw plus rematch will in fact significantly increase everyone's chance of winning, not this, but the next game, and is therefore in everyone's best interest. And in fact, this has actually happened during this year's Tier 1 Con. I will link a tournament report down below. It has to be mentioned though that in a tournament setting, this out only works if every player agrees to it, and there can be no bullying or coercion. And although it might seem weird to agree on a draw, in my opinion this is the best and most elegant out in most kingmaking situations. So let's wrap this up. There are different situations that can be considered a kingmaking scenario, and people won't agree on every single situation. There is no cookie cutter answer that will resolve all of the scenarios in the most optimal way. As the Kingmaker, you have to ask yourself, how do I significantly increase my odds of winning, and can I even do that reasonably? If you still have the option, propose a draw. If one player disagrees, try to cut the deal with the other player. That will significantly increase your chance of winning the game. As someone facing a Kingmaker, you need to ask yourself, how do I resolve this issue without straight up losing the game to the other player? In the end, it doesn't matter who you lose to, so you have to accept that you might be in a bad spot despite having a win attempt ready. Cutting a deal, or better yet, accepting a draw, will give you a higher chance of winning than just forcing through a win attempt anyway. Finally, and I can't stress this enough, in a tournament there are no takebacks. Don't just slam your win attempt on the table without talking to your opponents, or at least the Kingmaker first. Once your combo hits the stack, the options to resolve the situation are limited. And also, don't just slam your counterspell on the table without discussing the situation with the pot, or at least the opponent you are cutting a deal with. Once the counterspell hits the stack, your opponent does not have to agree on any additional terms. Talk to your pot before taking any actions. Analyze your situation and your odds of getting back into the game. Specify your demands, and if necessary, even call the judge. They won't be able to help you if the other party breaks the deal, but still call them. Again, do not jam your stuff down without thinking and talking first. Politics matter. Decisions matter. Do not throw the game because you are desperate or burnt out. Try to play optimally. After all, this is competitive EDH. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Hop over to my Discord server if you want to talk more cEDH or play some games with us. And if you want to support this channel even more, please consider becoming a patron. You can find all the links down below. Thank you for watching my videos. This is Eisenherz and auf Wiedersehen.